All right, what's up, Trojan fans? Welcome into the LA Sports Brotherhood. It's me, Ryan, here with my brother Matthew. And typically after games, we go into like a game recap, talk about what we thought and how that affects the rest of the season. But Matthew and I kind of felt like the bigger question, and it will apply to the Maryland game and all the recent losses, is about Lincoln Riley in general. We've talked about it a couple times now since they lost to Michigan. But I think this game specifically against Maryland really encapsulated at least my viewpoint. We're gonna get Matthew's. Just the questions about Lincoln Riley's ability to build a program, not just a team by team basis, because we've had a good team with him before, but to build a sustainably build a program that could compete for championships. And he's honestly never done that before. And I don't want to get ahead of anything we're going to say, but Matt, so let's think about it in that broad stroke. You could talk about specificities with the Maryland game or anything, but just generally, what do you really think USC could win with Lincoln Riley?
Yeah, I mean it's a difficult question. I think that we could repeat the same stuff over and over again. They made a lot of mistakes. Really lost through a pick. I think the season's over. We can't even compete really for like momentum in the next year. No Big Ten contenders, no playoffs. So, like you said, the biggest question in the program is can Lincoln Riley build a championship contending team like a Texas, a Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State, the four best programs in the country right now. And it's, honest as crazy as it sounds, I think this might be controversial to you and other fans. I do think it's still possible, and the main reason is because his biggest question mark, his biggest concern going into this year when we got him from Oklahoma, it was can he ever have a defense? And what did everyone say? If he even got an average defense, we would be a playoff contenders. Well, we have an average defense this year, maybe even a pretty good defense, and we have four losses and it's still October. So why is that? It's because of the offense, and we never thought we would be here. Where Lincoln Riley offense, excuse me, is the death of the team. And the reason I think that's a good thing is because what is wrong with this offense? There's three big things to me. The quarterback, the receivers are young and inexperienced, and the offensive line is young and inexperienced. Over time, the offensive line will get better. It's already gotten better. It's gotten better game to game. We actually won the line of scrimmage against Maryland. So imagine in 2 years, Texas was in a similar spot 2 years ago. They had a young offensive line. They were competing with Bama. They said, wait till those guys get more experience. Look what they are now. The receivers, same thing, inexperienced. Those guys are very talented. They keep getting better. In the Maryland game, we saw a lot of separation. That Miller Moss missed some throws. Deuce looks good. Mackay looks good. Lane looks good. They're going to get better. And for Miller Moss, I think that in 10 years, maybe not 10, in 5 years, we will be looking back saying Miller Moss was the worst quarterback that USC had under Lincoln Riley. And it's not even that he's a bad quarterback. It's just it's not the right fit, and he's made just too many mistakes. I mean, as the year has gone on, he's gotten worse and worse. So you take a look at those three things. I am not worried about those because, like I said, two of them are experienced, and they will continue to get better. And and as for the receivers, the recruiting's still good. We got Jordan, who's a freshman, very talented. Jerome Myers is coming in; he's going to be great. So those two things will get better over time. And as for the quarterback position, you got an outstanding talent wise, anyways, sophomore in Mayava. Then you got Juju coming in, and after that, hopefully you have Lions coming in. So the question for this team is, can the offense improve? And we're talking about a Lincoln Riley offense. So I believe in the offense to get better, and I know it's so negative right now, and rightfully so. Lincoln Riley's done an awful job this year. What no one is talking about right now is that he did improve the defense. He made a great staff hire, and they improved. He fixed his biggest weakness as a coach. Now it's his offense that's struggling. But I don't think he just forgot how to coach. I don't think he forgot how to recruit. I don't think he lost all of his offensive knowledge. I think he has a quarterback that he doesn't necessarily like. He has a young offensive line, and he has a young receiver group. I think those things will improve. And if you have a typical Lincoln Riley offense with this defense, you're in the playoffs every year. But I think how I'll toss it to you, I think you'll agree. My biggest concern is just his game management. I mean, he's been an awful in the fourth quarter this year, whether it's his play calling, whether it's timeouts. That's my biggest concern for him. I think the offense will get better. Defense will stay the same. Can he manage these games and win the big games?
Yeah, I will say I agree. Last point for sure. That's a good segue because that's what I was going to get into. I will say to your overall point, I don't necessarily agree, but I don't disagree, if that makes sense. Like right now, because Lincoln Riley's been a coach since before SC. Obviously, he had a great success. Well, relative, he had a great record at Oklahoma, is how I'll put it. But the problems have persisted for uh, almost a decade now. I think he's been coaching since 2015, 16, something like that. Head coach, I should say. And I think a lot of it has to do with, to your final point, game management and also play calling. I know he's an offensive genius to most, and I'm not saying when they run plays and they're schemed out well, it's incredible. Like genuinely, it's really cool for college. But he doesn't. I don't know if you remember, Matt, specifically against Oregon State, Caleb's first year when they almost lost. I That was the game where I was it was a little bit in jest, like, but I was saying I don't know about Lincoln Riley's like play calling because they were dropping 8 people. Travis Dye had like 120 yards on 5 carries, and they threw the ball every single possession in the fourth quarter. And I was just like, "What's?" It was the first time I opened my eyes to like I thought Lincoln Riley was like this genius, and there's 3 in the box, and he hasn't run once the entire time when they're up. Like I don't. It's a specific example, but it's something that since then, every time they run a play call, every different like variation to the run scheme and run blocking stuff when they don't have people, the personnel to match that scheme, it's always just like made me side eye him, like kind of like crook my neck like a dog when they're confused. And I don't know. It's that play calling aspect, which is not the worst case because obviously they can still run good plays. But what I think is like legitimately terrifying as a USC fan is how often it seems like late game situations he doesn't know what he's doing, or worse honestly is that he does know what he's doing and he thinks not utilizing timeouts or letting clock run is like a good thing. Because if for some reason he doesn't understand clock management and timeouts and like how much like he just doesn't have a feel for his players enough to call timeouts or give them enough time, that's something that even though he's all coaches are stubborn, you can still kind of evolve from there. But if you like, if he thinks that letting 30 seconds run off the clock when you're like need to score, or throwing twice when all you need to do is run clock and not gain a single yard against like we did against Michigan, like if you think that's the correct move, I don't know how to fix that. We've literally seen it 3 different times come back to bite us in the ass this season in losses that they should have won. And I don't, of course, this is all specific to close game situations, but this is all encompassing. Like, to win a championship, to build a contender, you have to have cohesion on all fronts. And I do like the defense is better, but I mean, it's fine. I think Danton Lynn's a great coach, and it's okay. Like, it's doing well. The recruit, like, I think the biggest issue, and this is kind of a variation. I'll introduce this and toss it back to you, is if we're talking about sustainability, it is based on recruiting. And so far, the entirety of their trench players is based on transfer portal recruiting. And I don't know if it's because NIL, very possible, that they can't get high school players that they can sustainably build from. But that is like the actual biggest issue to me because you cannot control the transfer portal. You don't know who's going in. You could tamper, and every team does it. So I don't. That's not a big deal to me. But if there's no offensive lineman, like this spring period, we're waiting for. Okay, we're just gonna get a tackle, and everyone's gonna fix around. I don't like. There was no Division 1 offensive tackles in the transfer portal the entire spring period, and they're just out of luck. They have nobody. So that's the actual issue. Like the very, very biggest issue. All the stuff we've talked about, I still like believe is a problem. But the way that he's recruited some stuff, maybe it's out of necessity or not, like it's just brutal.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like seriously, with everything you said. I'll start with like what you were first talking about. I 100% agree with the play calling concerns. Someone actually left a comment that was like, Is he really an offensive genius? Like he keeps making these mistakes with the running ball. Now, I'm not saying he is like just the most brilliant play caller of all time and every single thing he does is right. I'm saying that every offense he's had besides this one, I'm pretty sure has been a top 10 offense.
Yeah,
So like you really
absolutely.
can't question the guy on how good his offenses are. Like I agree they should have ran the ball against Oregon State, but ultimately they won that game. They had one of the best offenses the entire country. This year he's
Very
made
true.
a lot of mistakes. Guess what? If Miller Moss doesn't throw those 3 picks, we're a top 10 team, maybe with a one loss to Minnesota. So I think it sounds awful, but at the very least, if he doesn't improve his game management, which I find hard to believe, I don't think he can go year after year after year and not say like have at least someone say, "Hey, you got to run the ball," or fix these mistakes. But at the very least, he doesn't fix those mistakes. If he has the right quarterback, which he almost always will, a lot of times that play can make up for them not running the ball, the way Caleb did, the way hopefully Juju can do. So that at the very least. So ultimately, like I said, what we're questioning the play calling. Well, his offenses are going to score. So that's the very least. As for recruiting, that is also my biggest worry because I mean, look at the top 4 programs: Georgia, Texas, or like look at their recruits. We are not there. We're not even close to there. The thing is, I think that's more NIL than Lincoln Riley. So that's the reason I'm not bringing that up too much when talking about Lincoln Rilly. USC, we got to get that together. But and also the other thing is the recruiting is continuing to get better. Like I expect this next class to act genuinely be good. So I believe in the recruiting to continue to get better and better and better. Clay Helton set us back a long way. Danielle hopefully starts to get going. So yeah, I think I mean if you look at the class coming up, if you look at the future, the O line continues to get better. Paige, Noah, Talele. We just got a 4-star tackle. You get Juju coming in, you get Jerome Miles, who I'm really high on. Xavier Jordan gets better. I just believe in Lincoln Riley's ability to get a top 10 offense. I believe in the young defensive staff. I believe in the young defensive players, Desmond Stevens, Devin Tompkins. I think that it has been an awful coaching job this year. And in 3 years, genuinely, in 3 years, Lincoln Riley has done a bad job as a coach. But the question isn't has he been a good coach so far? The question is does he have the ability to create a championship level roster, a championship level program that year in and year out recruits, has good NFL players? I think that he can do that. It's up to him to improve this.
Yeah. I probably should have let off with this. Not saying that you're implying anything. I by no means think Lincoln Riley should be fired at all. I'm not calling for his job. It's just SC fans have this expectation, and also maybe this is the actual question. But they have this expectation that USC is this. They are a blue blood historically, but they have not acted like that in 2 decades. Like since they talk about Pete Carroll, and they don't realize that kids are playing for this team that have been born after Pete Carroll left USC. Well, that's an exaggeration, but still, like that era is. I mean, you're born like in the middle of it, Matthew. You're 19. There's people younger than you playing for SC. Like you had at a certain point beyond Lincoln Riley, the organization as a whole has to decide if they're going to be serious about this or not. Moving to the Big Ten implied some level of seriousness, but then nothing functionally has changed. This high school cycle could be better. It's definitely shaping up to at least be like they're addressing needs with higher level players at least. So I do agree that maybe they have kind of shaped up a little bit. But yeah, this overall I think is a foundational issue that Lincoln Riley is kind of like a band-aid to address, where they have to commit money in a legal fashion to players, or at least a illegal way that no one like everyone turns an eye to. And they certainly didn't commit to it when Lincoln first came, and I feel like that's really been the push, because you are right, when he has his guys on offense, at least, like no matter what, I thank you for kind of pushing back on that, because yeah, they won the Oregon State game, and they've averaged almost 50 points a game since he's been here before this year. It's just if you don't have the resources, if he's not given the resources to get his guys, then the extra stuff where it's like play calling and game management and stuff that really starts shining, and I think that's what we're seeing this season.
You know what? The last thing I'll say, and it just kind of hit me right now. I think, but we can agree on what the question for this team for Lincoln Riley is going to be: do we have the guys? and that could be through the transfer portal, recruiting, whatever. If we actually, I'll ask you the question: if we have the guys, let's say we have the 2022 offense. Let's say Cam Fallon develops into a dude, Desmond Stevens develops into a dude. We have like a roster, offense and defense that doesn't really have flaws. That's just solid. A good roster. Do you think we win a championship? Do you think that Lincoln Riley's decision making will hold us back?
We talked about this a couple times this season. If the 2022 offense just plopped in with this exact defense, we would be undefeated right now. So, I mean,
Yeah,
granted, that's because Caleb Williams is one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play college football. So that's a special case. But I mean, yeah, like they absolutely, at the very least, can have a TCU like run, and like that. Like I think they're way better positioned to like sustain that success. But yeah, 100%. It's just that and this isn't fair to him because this is every college coach really. Well, most college coaches that aren't at Bama or Georgia, even though we've seen Bama struggle a lot too. If you have to strike lightning, like catch lightning in a bottle, essentially, you have to get that elite guy, or you have to be Georgia and have a competent, you have a Miller Moss type person, and have the greatest defensive line prospect like that you've ever seen in a collection of it, and that's not going to happen at a C. So yeah, it just you have to find the guy, and Lincoln's absolutely done wonders for a lot of transfer players, which makes me wonder why they didn't really commit. I guess I don't know. They wanted to reward Miller Moss or whatever, but yeah, I there's definitely that's why if there was no way I thought that SC could win a championship, I would. That's when I would be like, okay, Lincoln has to go, or like we have to really consider it. But that's not where I'm at all. If he has the right players, 100%, I still think they can.
So overall, just like kind of put a bow on it. I just think to answer the question we've been talking about the whole time, I think the biggest key is going to be, does Lincoln have the right guys? And that is going to tell us over the next 5 years, are we this championship level team? Are we this dominant program? It's going to come down to, does he have the guys, which is more complicated nowadays. You got the transfer portal, obviously high school recruiting, and NIL. That's the biggest question that USC has to answer.
Yeah, realistically, it's. I'm glad that we kind of talked it through because it started with the Lincoln Riley question, but realistically, it is a question of USC football as a whole. Will the entire organization commit? And if they do, I think they'll put Lincoln in a position to get his guys and actually really have some success.
Yeah, because I mean, think about it. We've lost these games because of mistakes and Lincoln Riley stuff. But if we got Josh Connerly and Francis Mauigoa, we beat Michigan because they don't stack us 80 times. So at the end of the day, it is the talent on the field.
Yeah,
So I just think we got to get the right guys.
yeah, it's X's and O's versus Jimmys and Joes, and I've always been a got to get as many 5 and 4 star guys on the field as possible. And sometimes, a lot of time in college, talent will win out. But yeah, thank you so much for listening in. We appreciate the interactions and comments and stuff. Let us know what you think. If you disagree, feel free to let us know. We'll be back with a lot more. Even if the USC season is functionally over from a success standpoint, we will be here through the whole thing talking about it. So feel free to subscribe. Stay tuned. Thanks. Fight on.